Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Alex Lopatynsky. I'm a principal and managing director of Cooper Carey. We are a national architecture and design firm, and I run the New York office. We work in lots of different market sectors, and one of them is higher education. So I'm very excited to sit with you all today, or this evening, and the panelists to have a discussion around how we can all interact in this particular market sector, which is quite unique in how it's set up. So I'm going to allow the panelists to introduce themselves, but I will just say I'm joined by Frank, Tony, Matt, and Marcella from Stevens, Columbia, NYU, and Fordham, respectively here. And then before I dive into questions, I'm just going to give you some idea of how I'd like our panel discussion to move on and hopefully engage you.
Hello, everybody. I'm Frank LaCastro. I'm Assistant Vice President for Facilities Campus Operations at Stevens Institute of Technology over in Hoboken, New Jersey. So I'm honored to be the only one, I think, from across the river. So nice to be here with everybody. I've been at Stevens for 6 years. I have over 30 years experience in construction management, higher education, facilities management, commercial real estate, non-for-profit. So it's great to be here with the panel and all of you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tony Shala. I'm a procurement manager with Teachers College, which is affiliated school of Columbia University. I've been with Columbia for 8 years now. I'm in charge for basically procurement and construction procurement. I was doing this thing for the last 20 years in procurement and construction procurement. Before I came to Columbia, I was part of BNP Paribas, which is one of the largest banks in the world. I was in charge for Southeast Europe.
Howdy, y'all. My name is Matt Ismailzadeh. I'm from NYU. I'm a senior project manager there. I've been with NYU for 8.5 years. And I mean, I see some familiar faces in the audience. I work directly with a lot of, the firms sitting here today, the guests. And I'm excited to share insights on, the discussion of how we can work better together.
Hi, all. Marcella Gerbino. I'm Director of Capital Programs and Planning for Fordham. I've been in this position just over a year now, but before then I was in construction management, doing all types of projects from institutional, commercial, residential, you name it. So looking forward to sharing my knowledge and how we can make this whole process better for everyone.
This organization is focused on helping all of us do business development better. And given that higher institutions have a very unique process, both in the public institutions and private institutions, I would really love to hear from each one of you about some of the pain points you have in working with outside vendors, and that's service providers, material vendors, and the like, and be able to share some of the things that we had talked about previously in our prep to this, that I think things for us as the providers is important to know.
So thank you for coming. So as I said before, I'm in charge for procurement department at Teachers College, Columbia University. One of the first steps that you're going to have to do in order basically to become one of our vendors is basically being invited to our system, where you're going to actually create your profile. By creating a profile, we're going to do some verification behind the scene, and then you're going to be a certified provider for us, which then we're going to share with our Columbia colleagues, because that's what we do wherever we have a new companies on board.
So in higher ed, I think you mentioned a pain point, but there's a process to onboarding companies, vendors, consultants, contractors, service providers, and it's kind of arduous at times in procurement, because there is a process, as Tony says, to do that. Qualifying people takes time, so I think time is a big issue for me. There's not a week that goes by that my phone's not ringing or people aren't emailing to try to get in for an appointment to talk about business. So I think the time spent is important. So I value when people call me that they're prepared and have a good story to tell me and a good service offering that's meaningful and helpful to me.
I think one of the biggest pain points I'd experienced with working with, service providers, installers, is just making sure that our expectations are aligned on scope and what we're actually doing, right? Because as much as one firm in a particular industry can do one thing very well, another firm in that same industry can specialize in something nuanced and very different. And so I think just more communication when soliciting proposals or providing scope definitions, so people like myself can understand, I don't know your industry as well as you do. So if there's a particular assumption I may be making because I've done it one way and that's not the way, you've thought about it, a lot of times that could lead to problems down the road when I think, oh, I've got that scope covered, this person's doing it, and this firm's doing it, and the firm's like, nope, that's something that's unique to a different situation. So that would be one pain point that I think, just more communication, making sure that you understand the knowledge of the person you're working with to make sure, everything goes smoothly in the future.
Another pain point that I think it's across all aspects of the industry is just scheduling and timing. If you say that you need 8 weeks for a design, please have that done in 8 weeks at a time, because all of our work is dependent on that schedule. And a lot of times we have to answer, okay, why isn't the project done on time? And if it starts with design, then it trickles down to construction. So yeah, it would just be if you're going to indicate a time, please respond to the time that you say, because that creates a lot of frustrations for us.
One of the things that when we were prepping for this, and I heard from you all, was the idea of kind of listening to what your goals are when we're sitting on the other side of the table, truly understanding what you guys need to do and listening to what that is, and not kind of showing up with a fixed idea. Do you see that as something that you don't see in consultants and vendors, or do you see that and you bring those folks back on when that occurs? Is there repeat business that you could give them because they are good listeners?
Yes, I think it's good listening and also being proactive in design. There, especially on renovations, there's always going to be new things that pop up, but how can we be creative and put something in the scope so that when things do come up, we're not wasting a month trying to figure out what the scope is, how to price it and get it going. So proactiveness and creativeness in that, if you can help make our decisions faster and easier, then you're guaranteed new work.
Yeah, I guess to jump in, I think listening and ultimately, if you can make our lives easier, you'll get more work. I mean, that's the easiest way of saying it, right? An example, kind of developing on the pain point topic or a little further. If we got a proposal that said, $100,000 to do X, Y, and Z with no breakout, no explanation, it makes our lives a lot more difficult. And to top it off, in order to meet your schedule, you need to approve us tomorrow, right? Yeah. We're like, well, I can't do anything with this right now. And it makes it painful to go back to that firm and, kind of drag out what we need to get things going. We're going to go to the people we know that will give it to us right the first time, that we know we can get approved and everyone's comfortable with proceeding with. So we can get the projects moving forward.
And I would like just to add one more thing into this discussion as a procurement being for 20 years. So whenever you create your proposal, please try to add some more information about your company, about your culture behind that proposal, because we don't know who we are. Or maybe we used to work with you years ago. So things have changed. So just give a little bit of your introduction in your proposal. What were your successful stories? Who is behind your company? So we know that the company that we are hiring actually the experts with us. That's very important, because if you're just going to submit a piece of paper that's showing the scope and it's showing the quantity and the price, that's not going to tell us much. Because as Frank and everyone here was saying, for us, it's important timing. So if we have our project to be finished by a certain date, we have to finish by the date, because it's going to have a chain effect to us.
Yeah, I mean, Frank was even saying that just now before we started, how his day was bananas today. Like they don't have the extra time to read through stuff. Give them the punchline, make it brief and important right from the start, and provide some differentiation in the market.
Yeah, I think just on your part, all of you that are service providers, taking the time to listen, to understand. And when you submit a proposal, if you're using prepared documents or a form, if you have a stock form, please make sure to get it right. I've had proposals sent to me with the wrong name of the school on them because people didn't really do a thorough job of scanning their document and really proofreading it. So it's kind of it creates, again, getting back to the pain point for me of time, having to go through that and correct that. So just really understanding and putting the effort in up front saves a lot of time, and it really looks better for the person submitting the proposal.
Yes.
So I have a question just related to the procurement process and also to this particular topic. Just like in the higher ed admissions process, where students are expected to follow a certain protocol, essays, forms, a certain procedure, is there a way to have that, in a sense, unified and perhaps share best practices among the organizations so that when we come to that point, there's I wouldn't call it a template, but kind of best practice and procedures that will help you.
You're talking about the Common App, aren't you?
Yeah, similar. Every firm is different, of course, but again, to learn what your expectations are up front so we can all save time and really get it to you, further steps ahead in the overall process.
Standardization in higher ed, there's a lot of industry organizations in higher ed. There's procurement, buying cooperatives that universities leverage. E&I Cooperative is one of the largest in the country. Maybe you're familiar with it. There's good information there, but most universities, I think, have procurement departments that have standardized forms for anything from construction to facilities. So there is standards for this, and there's information available. When vendors come to Stevens, all that information is given to them up front if we're pre-qualifying people. So there is all that information at the pre-qualification process. Many universities have procurement websites that offer that. So the information's there. About proposals and value engineering, not initially, not for me anyway. We don't look for that up front. If that comes, usually it's late, a little bit later in the process, not initially.
Yeah, I guess to answer the first question, at least I'm sure all of our institutions have standardized forms. I think most of the time when we're requesting proposals, we're sending out formal RFPs, right? That give pretty specific instructions on what our expectations are. And some of those RFPs are, a lot to read and no one wants to do it, but I get that. We try our best to have like a clear section where it says, here's what our expectations are. So the problem of standardizing that is, at least from a project's perspective, every project is different. Every project has different requirements and the scope might be nuanced. So we might ask for something a little different on each project. For example, if it was a laboratory project versus a classroom project, we might ask for specific references on laboratories, right? Work that you've done there versus if it's, I'm going to actually switch that to offices because offices are kind of generic in a sense where I might not need specific references on past projects for for office renovations, because as long as you can prove that you've done capital projects in New York City and you're a reputable firm there, we won't need that sort of backup. So I guess my best advice on that is to take time through the RFP, read the written instructions. Usually they're pretty clear. If they're not clear, send an email to the procurement manager or the project manager or whoever's running that process, because they can help you make sure that you're submitting the right thing. For question 2, I'd agree. I think a lot of times what we're just trying to understand when we're asking for proposals in the first place is what's the effort it's going to take on your side and what's going to cost. And I think when you have too many VE options and things, it gets very hard for us to understand what are the base services, what are we getting, what is this other firm telling me I'm getting versus your firm. So I think a clean proposal that provides services for the requested scope that we're asking for is the best way of going it, and keep it simple, clean, easy for us to pick the right number.
When it comes to standardizing, at least in the capital side, it's really difficult to do that just because of what he said. Every project is different. And I think if whether we're talking about going from design services or construction services, it's two different processes. Being on the CM side, I understand the difficulties or the frustrations that come when you get an RFP that sometimes the bid form is not clear. So something that I understand, it's a two-way street. We have to provide bid forms that are clear, that make sense to what the scope is. So that's something that I am pushing in my department, to have the people that are generating the scopes really understand what to ask for. So hopefully to streamline that process. And on the design side, I feel like that could be standardized, but just for the initial discussion. After that, then when we discuss the bid, we can really figure out what's missing and that stuff. So it's just hard to standardize on the capital side. And then as far as VE, I would say that I find it beneficial when VE is proposed or discussed at the bid interview, not initially, because we need to understand apples to apples, what is the real number, and do we have to VE, and how much we need to VE.
Before I get to your question, Tony, do you want to talk about sort of product vendors and how they may respond to something like that? Because we've been talking about service providing and construction management, construction.
In our case, which is Teachers College, Columbia University, we are moving everything to electronic bidding, which is actually helping us a lot, especially with the vendor management. First and foremost, to help answer all these questions that you were just asking for, and especially in our case where we do a capital investments and projects that usually you really need to dive in and understand the project, we actually are doing RFIs just to understand, because it doesn't matter how big we are, how many people we have in our department, always we have limitations when it comes to staffing versus you guys that you have all those sources. So it's a partner work. So it's a joint work. So we do RFIs, we get as much as we can information. Of course, RFP that's why it is called a request for proposal. We are waiting you to propose us. We know what's our problem. We want you to come and say, this is your solution that fits you best, correct? Otherwise, I will just go ahead and then just do as needed, cookie cut product, which is not.
After the pre-qualification process is completed and you become a new vendor, typically the project is being bid out to 5, 6 vendors, right? Maybe 7, 8, but you can end up among 100 of them, right? Let's say 100 construction companies. How to be actually one of this group of 5 who will bid, so we can show you that you can get the service and responsiveness that you want.
You actually asked the question that was further on my list, but thank you for that. Anybody want to tackle that?
Sorry, just to better understand your question, are you asking after you've done pre-qualification, you're asking how do you get on the bid list?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're a new vendor. You have no experience with us, but we want to show you that we're worth your experience. So how to end up on the 5, 6 bidders that actually bidding your jobs from all the 100 vendors you have on your list? If there's any rating system within the firm, or how?
Yeah, do you need to go and have dinner with these guys and have drinks? What's this? What gets you qualified to get the RFP?
Yeah, so it's a tough question. I think it's different for it's probably going to be different for every institution here. It's probably different for every manager. I know NYU by itself it's a big university. There's tons of different schools that do things different ways. And there's different people that have different relationships with firms. So there's no silver bullet, so to speak, on how to get right in there and become one of the 5 bidders. I can say that at least at NYU, we don't have a sprawling list. We don't have like for any particular company. We try to keep it tight. And based on the project, based on the experience, based on the pre-qualification that your firm had gone through, there are like the department manager at our office would kind of give an idea of what firms would be best suited for a particular project. Sorry if I can't answer that any better, but
I think the question is, if you're new, how do you get in?
So I will answer in our end. So basically, whenever you get invitation, you're gonna be our supplier, correct? One of our new companies. So you have to be proactive. When I say proactive, meaning that it's not gonna hurt if you send us email saying that, by the way, we just finished this project. So you're telling your story, correct? Because that maybe will trigger the thing that, yeah, this is what we're asking for. And usually at Teachers College, which is the same thing with Columbia, my colleague here, so we go with the steps. So we start with a small project because we want to see how you perform. And if you perform on time with the quality, then you start going up. We don't want to kill companies, given them the big projects that they cannot handle. So we start with small and we go up based on your performance. But you have to be proactive, and this is why we are here. So we want to see you sending us email. We want to see you guys actually approaching us saying that, by the way, that's what we did. This was another successful story for us. So we know who we are, because when you put your name on your system, it's just a name. Nothing is behind that name. But we want to see stories behind the names.
Do you guys have something different at Stevens?
I think, story or an offering or knowing something about the people you're going to. If you're looking at Stevens Institute of Technology and you haven't visited our website, don't know we're in Hoboken, and you're calling me and we're having a conversation or an email exchange and you know very little or nothing about the organization, I think it requires a little effort and a little patience on everybody's part, that's doing this. It's not easy, but I think just being thorough, and if you understand what's going on in the particular institution, there's a need you can fill, and if you can differentiate yourself in some way in the email or the outreach that grabs the attention, that's going to help you.
Michelle, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, so I think for Fordham, it's a little different. And in my experience, like the amount of emails I get from random contractors or design firms, I'm not going to respond to all of them. I will be honest. So you could send as many emails, but for me to respond and say, yes, I'll come and meet you, that's kind of hard, just the amount of emails that we get on a daily basis. What I will say are events like this, where you get to meet someone and start a relationship. Like there's a contractor here that's going to be getting a bid invite soon that I met through one of the programs, through one of the events here. That's my approach. I like to meet the person, and if I seem like it's a good fit, then I will extend the bid invite. It's hard to do it just through emails. So each firm, each university does it differently. And then after that, it's timing. Like I met this contractor months ago, but we didn't have the right project for it. It looks like there's a good project that I think they would be a good fit. So I'm extending the bid invite. So there's a lot, there's not a clear answer, as you can see.
One size fits all. So I want to pivot a little. Oh,
sorry. Can I ask my question?
yes, you can.
So my name is Hamza. We're an exterior contractor with Tony at Columbia. I'm well aware of the process because we're an emerging MBE contractor with Columbia. Eventually, our goal is to be their vendors. I've been trying to reach out to NYU and Fordham forever. Thank you for your honesty, because I think I've bombarded your email quite a bit. And just like Tony and Tanya, I can reach out to them. They know who I am. He's one of the coaches. We're working to get into the vendors list. But NYU and Fordham, no offense to New Jersey, we're gonna get there. You guys, we've been trying to reach out to you. Like, look at us, look at our capability statements, emails. But it's just so difficult for an emerging MBE contractor. But Columbia, I'm gonna say nice things about them because Tony's here. They really genuinely, we're in their CU Grow program, and we're about to become their vendors soon. So what do you guys have opportunities for emerging contractors who are trying to reach out to you, like give us a chance?
That's a great question, and it was actually my very next question. So I appreciate the audience doing my job. I love it. It was a bigger question around ESG, right? It is a topic that is front and center in a lot of sectors. It's even now become a mandate in a lot of instances with pension funds funding projects, banks having it as part of their core values, businesses having it as part of their core values. I know universities have it as part of their core values. I want to break up the ESG into two buckets, the E, the environmental, and the S in the social justice or supporting WMBEs. So on the environmental side in New York City, in particular, Hoboken's going to get there. And I know Stevens has a very strong sustainability program. And Local Law 97 and a lot of these governance mandates that are impacting how we're actually doing work here. What are specific things your schools are doing in matching up those vendors, service providers who believe in those things, can provide that stuff, and how are you working with them? And what can they learn from you and get more work out of it?
All right. I'll go first again. All right. So the two-parter, right? Environmental and then the social governance. Okay. So environmental. So Local Law 97, NYU's been pretty focused on sustainability. I think it's pretty public about how focused they are on sustainability. We have an energy management group that is dedicated to just studying our existing buildings and looking for ways of improving their energy performance. And then we have another group that supports that energy management group and executes some of the projects that they've researched, right? Whether it be installing more efficient HVAC systems somewhere, replacing buildings, replacing windows on specific facades. In addition, and all of our large capital projects go through a sustainability review where our baseline requirements is we're usually going for LEED Silver or better, right? But we do energy models, box models. We do WUFI analysis on the facades, right? And we try to define right up from the get-go, especially if we're touching an entire floor, what scope can we do to improve the energy beyond just the program, right? So, and a lot of it comes back, hey, you have to insulate the facade and replace these windows. You're touching the floor, let's not come back. You're only going to touch it once in the next 25 years, is what we all say, right? So now's the time to do it and make sure we're doing the right scope. For the social governance part, I think that's also a two-parter because your question was more focused on how do you get in, right?
Yeah, Matt. Yeah, that I should have been more specific. What are you guys doing for WMBEs?
So all of our, I was going to say, we do have, again, firms that are MBEs, WBEs, and all of our projects have baseline requirements of hitting certain milestone goals of just participation, right? For all contractors. And it does have a significant impact in terms of what firms we're working with, right? If you have two proposals and they're within, percentage points in price, it's almost always going to go to the MBE, WBE if everything's equal. Ideologically, if everything's equal, right? But it's never always equal, right? Every firm has their own nuances. Every firm. So when you're leveling it, all I can say is it does have an impact, and there are specific goals and milestones that we try to hit. From the onboarding side, right? I think newer the emerging part is the more difficult part at NYU. And the reason is we're a risk-averse institution. We like to see that there's been years of experience of a certain firm that's done work for other major companies before, all of our projects are important projects, right? There's not a single project that we can slip or miss. And so when we're looking at companies to do work for us, we're counting on companies that have, demonstrated experience because it's the least risky way of, messing up a project.
As far as MWBE, Fordham doesn't have a specific program similar to Columbia, so I can see how it's difficult to get in. It is an objective of mine personally for us to create that. It's been a little over a year since I'm in this position, so I haven't figured it out yet, but I can understand the difficulty. I think if we could exchange business cards, that could be a great. So that is what I could do for you now, but it is something that I know that it's something that Fordham is missing, and I hope that in between this year and next year, I can figure out a program. I will go to Tony to ask for suggestions on how to do it, but I know it is something that Fordham is lacking.
Yeah. So I think this is more where procurement will have their role, because it's a procurement who basically lands the new suppliers, correct? And this I think is gonna be solved in the near future, because more and more colleges, universities are moving to electronic procurement, which gives you a tool basically to manage those companies, correct? Because in our case, for example, we use Unimarket. Jagger is that's used by Columbia. You have a place where you could actually upload your certificates in there, and that's gonna help. We all know that for now, it's only recommended using 30% of transactions with the minorities, women in business, but I know for a fact that in the near future, that's going to be kind of mandatory, correct? So I know that the different departments from different schools are proactive. They are working on creating those lists, so they have the backup in case that they're going to need them. So in this case for Fordham, I'm going to work with Margell and with everyone else. So basically who wants to how to implement that. Columbia has actually came up with a very nice program. It's called Growth Program. I encourage all minority women in business to be part of it. It's a program, usually you're going to spend $100,000 on it, and we give in that for free. So basically through our program, not only that you're going to be recognized as our vendor, at the same time, we're going to help you build your business plan. We're going to help you on marketing, and as well, basically, we're going to help you to penetrate this market.
Frank, do you want to talk about Fordham's sustainability goals? Because I think, so far, Fordham. Stevens is, sorry. Looking at you. You know what I meant. Because I think your school has some really impressive goals, and it does require the service providers and the vendors to really be aligned with that. And it is a very strong differentiator.
It is. It's very important to the university. And I would say for us, we're looking for partners that are thinking really ahead, not just lead certification or one particular thing. We're looking really to take sustainability in total when we deal with a supplier, a consultant. So decarbonization, getting to net zero, and how we can, what offerings you all have and can bring to the table, and give us ideas and share experiences and case studies that again are different. Some firms just are in a lane on sustainability, and it's a very narrow lane that they're in. So I would say to push yourselves to expand your thinking about all this, and bring solutions and bring new ideas. And when you're submitting those proposals and getting in touch, just be very complete and well-rounded in the whole subject of sustainability would be helpful.
And I would just like to add here, that's where we look for partners, correct? So we at Teachers College, we actually are working very closely, and I think the companies here somewhere present, on energy savings, correct? So basically they were a big help to us. We know what's our problem. We know what we need to fulfill on those requirements, but we didn't know how to approach those requirements, correct? So that's why we actually contracted our consultant who is helping us with that process.
So you mentioned helping with marketing and in the whole process, and obviously there's a lot of moving parts to capturing a bid, and a lot of it depends on bringing information to the table so that you're able to learn about the company and the values and the things that go alongside the numbers. but proposals are obviously more, there's the number focus, the points that we're considering. Would you find that, and you said making your life easier is definitely a big way to get, the bids accepted. Would you say it's like a good blend of covering your bases as far as like make sure that your numbers are, a good bid, but also, how much do you want presented in that, the initial conversations of email, or do you find that you're doing a lot of, discovery on your own as far as like brand side goes? Like, are you going through the personal websites or things in that manner of like a brand to discover, or is it mostly dependent on us to bring that information to you so that you're able to, without bogging you down with too much information? Because it seems like there's information you need to know, and maybe the right way to package that depends on what that looks like. But I was wondering how much discovery are you going into if someone has a brand laid out that's easily viewable,
So is your question, are these folks actually going out to find you?
So if someone's, you're saying that if you have the information that gives a little more insight on the company, builds trust and all that, does it make the most sense to put your focus towards that initial conversation with you, towards those emails and giving information there? Or is that going to bog down the conversation and disinterest you? You make it seem like it's too complicated, or when maybe you just want to see more of the numbers. Do you think it's a very personal decision? Because that's what it seems to be, or like a balance of a personal and a numbers decision here.
As far as materials that are being introduced, I rely on the design team. So if I say that I want this project to be carbon neutral, or I want to make sure sustainability is an effort, I rely on the architect, the design team, the engineers to present products and ideas that align with the goal of the project. So it's not necessarily like if a manufacturer reaches out to me, I will always ask. If something piqued my interest, then I'll send it over to the architect or the engineer and say, does this work with what we're doing on this project? That's what I do and what I've seen done in the past.
Thank you for supporting us.
Was that in line with your, I guess in terms of, I was getting the sense you were talking about in your proposal, what materials should you be presenting that support your brand of your firm?
Yeah, I'm hearing a blend of you should be sharing about your brand, but also being concise, and also that you're doing background searching on companies. So just what the right focus is. Should I be, assuming that anything would be getting, that I should be showing everything in my proposals or sending you to those places? Yeah.
So I think it goes back to what's asked for again in the RFP, right? So if it's every institute, if you've worked with an institution repeatedly, they probably know your firm pretty well, and you don't have to bog down the contents of your package with, a lot of extraneous information. If it's, I can tell you this, if it's like one of the first or second times you work, or it's a project manager you've never worked with, right, or procurement representative, I would just go by the letter of the law on the RFP, and if there's any questions on that, because usually on the RFPs, I'm requesting, relevant project experience, what are some sustainability initiatives you've achieved and things like that. So if the RFP requests it, definitely provide it and make your proposal easily readable and flow. Hey, this is the section where the cost is. Here's the section where you requested all of our background information. And I think you'd be in good shape.
Question for you. How often are you engaging outside consultants with putting your RFPs together?
I could say from my experience, rarely. And so we have, we do a lot of work. And so for the types of work we do, we have standard RFPs that kind of go out. Sometimes if there's like a nuanced aspect of a project that really needed like a more custom template, we'll ask like our architect, if it was a specialized thing, to come up with some sort of bid form or RFP template for it. But it's rare. We have standard RFPs for most of the type of work we do, and we don't really go outside for it.
Yeah, I would agree. It's rare. Really, if we need a subject matter expert consultant for something that's highly technical or that doesn't come up very often, we would engage a consultant for an RFP look, or a peer review maybe from somebody would be helpful on an RFP, but not too often either for us. I would agree.
And for us, it would be the scale of the project. If it's a major project, then yes, we would get an outside firm. But for the most, what we do on a year-to-year basis, we do RFPs internally.
It's same with us at Teachers College Columbia. If we are dealing with a project which is very complex, which I had the case, weeks ago, we are doing a dancing class. When I was reading the scope, I thought this piece of cake, it's easy to do it. But when we start deep in the details, that's where we said, okay, we really need someone from outside as a consultant to help us with the process.
So it sounds like it varies. We have just a few minutes left. I can ask the panel sort of a final question, but if there's some burning questions still out there, sounds like there is, I will.
I'm just curious, how often do you find yourselves entertaining new vendors? Whether it's on the design side, general contractor side, is this something you see that we can expect to get up in the door once every 2 years, 5 years? It may vary, but I was just curious, how often are you looking to change your vendors? Or add people?
It's a good question. I'll talk about it from the facility side, and I'll let the construction and procurement people answer. On the facility side, contracts come due at certain intervals, 3, 5, 7, 10 years. So when we're doing any type of a service RFP or consulting RFP on the facility side, again, leaving construction aside for a moment, there are opportunities when those bids come in. So let's say for cleaning or janitorial in a building, I mean, when the word is out that an RFP is upcoming at Stevens, my phone and my email are off the chart. Everybody wants to be pre-qualified to participate in the RFP. So I'd say on the facility sides, there are opportunities. But again, when those opportunities arrive, be prepared, know about the institution, take some time to do a little prep and research about the institution you're pursuing, and I think that'll help.
You guys have anything else to add to that?
For Fordham, for me, I'm looking to change and add new people. So for Fordham, the opportunity would be now, is what I'll say.
So it's the same thing as Ryan was saying in our side. Where it comes to maintenance services, we do refresh always because we go out for a look for new companies. But at the same time, when it comes to construction, repairs, renovation, we always look for new companies because as a Columbia, we always have a need for more companies. And that's why we have the system which can be introduced. But one thing what I would like to add to all of you, one of the ways that you could actually approach universities, colleges, companies is through your peer companies, meaning through your competitors. Because if you ask them to know the culture of the institution, what our expectation, then you know better how to approach us, correct? So you don't have always to send the email because as Margella was saying, I mean, we get 100 emails. It's very hard to actually go through all those emails and try to answer every single of them. We try to create our standard. We try to have our standard operation procedure, how to board new suppliers, which are all public. But that's another way how you could actually approach. And then you create the relationship, because most of the time, where we are actually looking for companies, we are looking for a reference, correct? So if someone is going to refer me to a company that they have done a brilliant job, if Margella knows a company that she done work with them, definitely I'm going to actually try to reach into them and try getting the job with them.
Okay.
And vice versa.
Matt, do you have anything to add? Is NYU open?
It's more frequently than you would think. I'll leave it at that. I mean, vendors come in and out of favor all the time for various reasons, and there's always opportunity at any point.
Well, I want to thank IBD Pros, Guy, Gary, the committee that organized this. Thank you very much. And especially our panelists. Thank you, everyone, for participating. I hope you all got something out of the conversation.